All right, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the sixth episode of Game Changers. It's a show where we're bringing together the industry's top visionaries, innovators, and leading brands in the gaming and Web3 space. I'm your host, Bear, and together with me is that green guy.
You always pause for
I
dramatic
know.
effect. Bored Elon.
There it is.
I'm starting to
I
get
feel
it.
like, yeah, I feel like we're getting closer and closer every episode. Every episode, we're getting better. Um,
We finish each other's.
Sandwiches? Oh God, dad jokes. Well, hi. I am I'm co-hosting with Board from a farm in Long Island. I've been traveling all over the country the past 2 weeks, trying to keep everything going on my side. But I'm looking at some chickens and some goats, other farm
Little Animal
animals.
Crossing
Yeah, it's
IRL.
Animal Crossing IRL. Maybe I'll actually try to play that game. I got chased by a goat yesterday. It's kind of scary. And I don't recommend getting into a closed pen with a goat that has a lot of horns. Have you done that before, Board?
Not in the pen. I did go to an animal farm where you could feed them, and you got to watch your fingers because those teeth can chop them off pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
So I'm
That's not something that happens in Animal Farm. There's no amputation of fingers by
yeah.
goats yet. Maybe the next version.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to stay alive. I think I have the animals at bay. I am super excited to have some friends of the court on the show today. I think we have everybody on. I see Jennifer. So Jennifer and I. So I guess I'll let them introduce themselves. But what I would say is, I've gotten to become friends with a lot of people over at Immutable, and Jennifer is one of those people. I think the space, as we all know, and this is why Board's up here. I don't know anything about video games, but Board certainly knows a lot about video games. And Jennifer from Immutable is here today. She has deep experience, and this is what it takes. It takes experience mixed with new ideas to sort of push things forward. And so I think we should probably go around the horn. Let's start with Jennifer. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Bear and Ward, for having me. Very excited to be on your show as you're continuing to finish your
Yeah.
sandwiches. Very
Thank you
excited
for
to be here.
coming. Thank you for coming.
Uh, Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm with Immutable. I'm the VP of Game Partnerships. I work on our game side of the business, and essentially have built out a new model where we are working with a select number of game partners that we have here on the show to help bring Web3 games to market in a way that really resonates with players, that, changes the script from some of the early game projects we saw in the space, refocuses on what players are looking for, what provides them value, making sure that it's always player experience first that we're building from, and delivering games that way. So that's what I'm working on. But I come from the game industry for, gosh, almost like 2 decades now. Started out handling communications for Xbox and Square Enix on the agency side, and then more recently was a SVP of marketing at Bandai Namco, and then handled publishing for Riot for APAC. And so came from the Web 2 traditional game industry from big publishers, and see just a huge sea change happening in the space. And I really truly believe that the game industry always moves in the direction that is best for players. We saw that with free to play, where people resisted it initially, but it was clear that that was a model that was better for the player experience and allowed more people to jump in. And then we saw that also for mobile, for example, where the industry kind of, or even players resisted that, but then everyone realized actually this makes things far more convenient, and now it's the leading platforms. So I think the same is true for Web3, where people will initially resist, but then see like, hey, actually this offers all this like ownership and ability to actually control assets for players, and it's actually a better experience. And so that's really why I joined Immutable. I see that this is where I believe the industry needs to go to continue delivering the best player
I
experience.
love that. I
So yeah.
love that. Do you want to? Well, I mean, I think you work with some of these games up here today. Do you want to sort of set the table for them? I guess maybe they can introduce themselves, but they're all a part of. I think the idea of the show today was to sort of bring in you from Immutable on the proper team, and then bring in some games that are in your ecosystem. And I guess maybe we can talk about that after they introduce themselves, sort of what the through line is, and sort of why everybody is so excited about what you guys are building. So maybe we go to Shardbound first.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having us on the show today. My name is Bo Daly. I'm the founder and chief exec at Bazooka Tango. We're building a game called Shardbound. Shardbound is really about bringing a real deep, smart, tactical gaming experience with beautiful world, like true AAA style gaming, to players in Web3, and to really kind of build towards a future where Web3 is an enabling technology in every mainstream mass market, big core gamer game. I myself have spent 20 plus years in the game industry. Started out as a engineer at Rockstar Games on Red Dead Revolver and Red Dead Redemption. I built MMOs with the guys who made, Quake and Diablo. So, worked very close to some great people early in my career, and then about 10 years ago, founded a company that built the world's first competitive MOBA on mobile, and we, built a game called Vainglory. So that was at a time when Candy Crush was kind of new to the world. So as Jennifer was saying, like there are technological frontiers that get traversed, every 5-10 years or so in the games industry, and I've really kind of built my career trying to bring gamers across the chasm, and it's so exciting right now to be in a position where we can introduce some of these totally new ideas to players and like deliver a better gaming experience by introducing some new technology, and frankly, building businesses where there's a little more room and a little bit more sort of open design space, because not every rock has been turned over. So we're really focused on building a deep game that is fun to watch. Players can spend 1,000 hours playing it and just never get bored. Constantly skilling up, but also another 1,000 hours watching streams of the game or reading strategy guides, build guides, deck building. These are the kinds of deeper experiences that I think we kind of have yet to see. It's kind of par for the course in sort of like the high end Web 2 games, but we think that by bringing that style of experience, we can really massively expand the market around what has been called Web 3 gaming today. But I think it's 3 years from now we're just going to be calling gaming.
Oh, awesome! Well, the game looks fantastic, and let's get into the actual game in a bit. I wanted to let Chainsaw from Metalcore come and introduce themselves. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm John, otherwise known as Chainsaw. I'm the creative director on Metalcore. Yeah, our goal is to, as well, bring the idea of, AAA high quality gaming to this space. And our game is, focused on large scale battles, quick action, giant mechs, tanks, combined armed fighting, but also collecting and exploration missions. So, we think that this is a good technology to, empower players to make those collections, to explore and create and, have fun within this space, but also, embrace, the new economic model, and I think the new path for games.
That's awesome. Love it. Well, I kind of wanted to, at least Board, I'm not sure if you have any questions, but I kind of wanted to kick it off with Jennifer, just because I feel like Jennifer, you're a bit of the sort of the glue here when it comes to Immutable, and what you all are looking on this side. I know there's sort of a couple sort of different angles into gaming you guys have, but when it comes to games like Metalcore and Shardbound, one, why you like, what is the through line with the games that you guys are looking for? And two, with these games specifically, how does it play into sort of that philosophy? And then obviously Shardbound and Chainsaw chime in too.
Yeah. So this idea came from us being game builders ourselves at Immutable. We have a game studio. We have two in-house games, which is Gods Unchained and Guild of Guardians. And as we do that, there's of course like the traditional game development side of things, and then like all these complex Web3 side of things that are like Web3 economy and tokenomics and kind of like these new areas of things that people haven't done before and game builders haven't done before. So we really wanted to help abstract that away for game developers and let folks like Shardbound and Infinite Victory and Metalcore really focus on developing a fun game, and then have our team, which is doing all this stuff like tokenomics every day, to do that economy design, to do integration engineering, to do things like the wallets and the marketplaces, etc. And then we're partnered together to bring an experience to players. So with that kind of model, we wanted, it's very high touch for us. Like it requires a huge amount of time and human resources to work with these games. And I could really only take a small handful of games as we get this started. So for me, it was really important that we're working with, first of all, partners that we love, but games that we really believe in and really resonated immediately. And I truly, both me and my game director and a couple other game designers on our team played literally hundreds and hundreds of games. We play tested so many games that came across our table to see, which ones we really believed in and have make sense for Web3 as well. Not every single game makes sense for Web3. And we wanted to ensure that there would be some sort of value that players would see in the game. And these three games were the ones that, stood out for us. So that's kind of how that came to be.
That's great to hear. And I wanted to chime in, Jennifer. It's great to see so many people from the traditional games industry move into this space. If you felt something similar to what I did, 5 years ago or so, it was that the evolution kind of slowed down. Games have become a little bit of a formula. You have your one-off breakout hits that just kind of bucks the trend. But this space was really exciting for me. So I'm curious, when you were kind of thinking about that transition, obviously brands like Riot and Bandai Namco, world renowned. But what was going through your head? Was that a little scary? Did people try to talk you out of it? Like, what was your sort of driver to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, people definitely did try to talk me out of it. I think there still exists a very strong resistance from kind of like that Web 2 space on what Web 3 means and what NFTs are, particularly because they saw not great examples of it, and I can't necessarily blame them for feeling that way when you don't like deeply look into the space. And so I definitely did get a bit of resistance from some colleagues, but on the other hand, I also saw a lot of the space moving that way. And actually, the reason I joined Immutable is that our chief studio officer is Justin Hulag, who I used to work for at Riot. We have a little bit of a ex-Riot mafia, as we call it, at Immutable. There's quite a few of us there, and quite a few Immutables actually that have moved into the Web3 space. I'm close to a lot of them at Polygon, at Solana, kind of all with the same philosophies. So I think there's been a strong contingent of traditional game developers that are shifting over.
I had the same thing, I think, when I started too. A lot of people were very, very concerned about NFTs. I think as things have gone on, uh, attitudes are changing in the industry for sure. A lot more people are coming in contact with NFTs and understanding what the possibilities they hold. So the attitude's definitely changing. But yeah, I think a very, very similar exposure to it when I started.
Well, I would even think, if you rewind a decade or so, like even going to Riot at one point might have been a question mark, like, oh, you're not going to work for, Nintendo or PlayStation or EA, and obviously we know how that story ended. So taking risks with new gaming companies can often have really big upsides, and certainly like on the Immutable side, you guys have been making big moves and onboarding some great games that we're all excited to play.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly true, right? And that's how I feel about the Web3 space in terms of like the similarities with free to play or mobile that I mentioned. Riot, Mark and Brandon, who founded it, always talk about how like they couldn't get investors initially because people were like, "What do you mean it's free? Like, what do you mean people are just going to pay for cosmetics?" So there's always that. Yeah, there has to be a couple of shining examples that like really believe and have conviction in a new model, and why it's better for players, and for that to pan out, for things to shift over. And it takes a bit of time, and I think we're in that phase right now where we are like towards the end of this year and early next year going to start to see those shining examples. We're going to start to see those, big game experiences like the folks that are on this call that actually start to change a wider audience's mind.
I
Yeah,
also
and
think there was.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah, I just sort of chime in. I think it's the combination of sort of the conviction, but also kind of like the ability to really execute at a high level that sort of brings the new technology from kind of something that maybe isn't the best example of what's possible into kind of the stage that we're at now, where um, you're seeing high quality products really start to embrace the technology. I always think back to kind of the early days of like Facebook gaming, right? A lot of people's first touch with free to play gaming wasn't League of Legends and a high quality project, right? It was a really spammy Facebook game that was posting stuff on your wall, or and so I think when a lot of people looked at free to play, they weren't thinking about, well, in Asia at the time it was hardcore MMOs and like really pretty high quality stuff, but when free to play made its landing here in the US, like it was the cheap projects that could kind of get something out quick to build that conviction. You need to have some proof points to start to build the conviction, but usually that's not done with a $50 million budget, $100 million budget. They are smaller games, and so when gamers look at those early experiences, they look at them and go, "Hey, the quality is not here," and they blame it on the technology or the innovation. But it's really just a question of like resourcing and execution and quality, and so I think that we're in this kind of magical moment, similar to kind of where Riot was in terms of like the advent of free to play, where the models are proven and believable, but it's going to take someone to really commit to that model and commit to building a great game for players that happens to also uh, involve this new model. And so yeah, this is a really exciting moment, I think, for Web3, and I think that coming out of this kind of bear market into the next to the next growth cycle, like we're going to see much better quality products, which bring in much larger audiences.
I agree, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I'd rather look forward, but I think another added layer of complexity to this was, there were some early success in games, with like games like Axie Infinity, and I think this idea of like play to earn, or play to win. I think that yes, it was like a quote unquote a successful game, but it looked so different, and I do think it wasn't really game first. It was really tokenomics first, and with the market tied to a volatile system of cryptocurrency, it's like that much harder to prove that this whole space can support a healthy game ecosystem. So I think like we're moving past that now. And what's nice is even with ourselves, and I see them in the crowd, is the Forgotten Runeverse, which is our MMORPG. We really wanted to focus, and it sounds like, Jennifer, this is something you guys had to check a box with games like Shardbound and with Metalcore, is like, okay, let's find people who actually know how to play games. Let's focus on the gameplay itself first, and get away from this like token first style. And I agree. I think, Jennifer, I think I saw you at 3XP. And Board, I know you were there. Shardbound and Metalcore, I think you were there. But it was the first time that I went to a Web3 gaming convention, or just a Web3 sort of convention that had gaming, and was like, oh, it's all coming. Like, it's starting to come together. I'm playing demos of games that feel like real games, and it feels like it's going to be a thing. And I guess my next question would be more for Shardbound and Metalcore. Like, from our perspective with the Forgotten Runeverse, we're still figuring out where we're gonna, where what our home is, right? Like, is it Immutable and Polygon? is it Arbitrum? And I'd love for you guys to sort of speak to why you're with Immutable, what drew you to them, besides Jennifer being super rad and experienced, and I also love Justin, who runs studios over there. But would love for you guys to talk about why you feel like you can be successful in that ecosystem.
For us, besides them being rad and awesome, I think you hit the nail on the head. We came into this looking at it as it has to be a game first. It has to be a good game first. You see with Axie being mostly about tokenomics, that can't survive in the long run. Not really. The game has to be great. It has to be fun. It has to be able to survive, bear markets in order to have legs. It has to be good. It has to have quality. You have to have fun. You have to have return play. You have to have good player experience. So with Immutable, what they helped us out with is, the flip side. A lot of us at our studio we all came from Web 2. So there's a lot of this nuance with Web 3 that Immutable, provides us with insight with, and, helps us out with our economy planning and stuff like that allows us to focus on, making sure the game is great and the game integrates well with the Web3 technology, and they help us out with the more the nuance with the Web3 side of things. So I think it seems like a great pairing to get the best product out.
Yeah, I'll echo that for sure. I think also the fact that there's so much shared DNA in terms of having built, right, within Jennifer's team in particular, right? There's so many people that have built great gaming franchises that are very gamer first, and that have really withstood the test of time, right? And so when I look at the market, I is super excited about what's coming with Shardbound this year and what's coming over the next couple of years for us and for the industry certainly as a whole. But I think when we look also at the place where players are today, it's going to take some education. It's going to take some really great products and some really novel and kind of innovative experiences to kind of bring that sort of mainstream core over. And I certainly think it's a 2 to 3 year project. But history's, it could be a 10-year project to really get the core, hardcore gamer sort of fully comfortable in the Web3 space. And the thing that I really liked about Immutable is, they built, this team has built games that have lasted 10 years. And we know, we share a lot of vision around, what it's going to take to bring players in and keep them for 10 years. If we do need to start to slowly bring players into the ecosystem. Our North Star isn't, being, I don't know, Gods Unchained plus. Sorry, Jennifer, right? Like in terms of like, we're not just trying to take a Web3 model and kind of be a little bit more polished about it. We really are building for 100 million plus future Web3 wallets. And the timeline on that is, the timescale on that is a little bit unknown, right? Obviously, we're very bullish. But to have someone in our corner that is thinking about building for the long term and thinking about building systems that aren't maybe sort of maximalist in terms of like, what are we going to do today to eke out the greatest Web3 returns, but really is about how do you build a brand that gamers are going to trust, that can shepherd across literally hundreds of millions of players into this new ecosystem, into this new model. And sort of build it in the right way and communicate it in the right way. They seemed extremely expert and adept at that, and they clearly get the Web3 side and can bring a ton of resources, as Jennifer said, to actually help us and by building and taking ownership of some of these components. But for me, it really was the sort of long-term alignment of vision that this is about mainstream gaming. It's not about Web3 gaming. This is about mainstream gaming and really making the things that Web3 makes possible and delightful, bringing those to mainstream gamers in a way that they haven't seen before.
So to that point, would love to transition a bit from the industry discussion to more of like the player discussion. Let's pretend this year E3 was not canceled and probably canceled forever, and you guys got a free booth, and a player is walking up to your booth, and they want to know about your games. How are you communicating it to them? Can you tell everyone a little bit at a high level about what you're building, whether it is a game or a suite of games? And maybe we do Shardbound first and then Metalcore.
So we're building in Shardbound. We aim to, over the long term, really build a universe of great gaming experiences for core gamers. So we over time we aim to build kind of a constellation of deep strategy games set in a world that is beautiful, rich with lore and all the things that a typical gamer is going to get excited about. But really, that challenge players to develop their skill, develop their craft across the game, and to think about sort of ownership and some of these pieces in new and novel ways by unlocking value for players over time. So today I think we're really pretty much focused on Shardbound itself, the CCG tactics game. This is it's a hybrid of all the games that I loved, frankly. In my young life, it's got the tactical board-based strategy of something like Final Fantasy Tactics, obviously, or XCOM, or even sort of Heroes of Might and Magic, combined with great deck building, great kind of mana kind of CCG mechanics, and it is really just something that you can spend thousands of hours playing today, and you'll fall in love with the world, you'll fall in love with the race, you'll fall in love with the deck and play style, and because of Web3 and the ability to trade cards and really own these things in the way that I owned Magic cards, as a teenager, like just be able to sit around on a Friday night swapping cards with a friend, trying to build towards the deck that best exemplifies your particular playstyle, right? And to try things out and not be afraid that you have to open 10,000 loot boxes just to get the card that you want to complete the deck build that you want, and then find that you hate it. Right. So, this is there's whole new experiences here that in a lot of ways it is about bringing some of the great things about offline play, really, in some ways, and some of the things that are like proven into a new space in a way that is going to be just delightful for players and allow them to connect more with their friends, with their communities, and with the people across the table. Right. At the end of the day, these games are competitive, and they stoke that same same competitive drive that motivates players, and we hope this to see some very high level play emerge from this, and to give players something to always want to strive for and always want to skill up for.
Yeah, it's great, and the corners of the cards don't get bent, which is nice. You don't have to spend
100%.
100 hours putting them into sleeves and then forgetting they're in your closet, and then your mom throws them away, and they were really valuable, and it's a whole ordeal. That's something that happened to somebody else. Chainsaw, how about on the metalcore side? You've got the E3 booth that is now imaginary. Somebody walks up. They just left the Sony booth, weren't impressed. Came over, saw some mechs walking around. They're like, "This is cool. What's this all about? What is your elevator pitch for metalcore?"
Yeah, we're it's a multiplayer online combined arms large scale shooter at its core. Mechs, tanks, airplanes, competing in a um, open world game where you have multiple factions vying for control of the planet. But ultimately, what we're trying to provide is sort of that that feeling of you get in your mind when you, I don't know if you used to play BattleTech on tabletop or Warhammer, where you have all these giant war machines duking it out by rolling dice and moving 6 inches at a time. This gets us in the same space, but you get to see the giant mechs and tanks and infantry running around the battlefield shooting lasers and bombs at each other. And so this crazy bombastic warfare and combat. But ultimately, we do have our mindset also on the metalverse, as we're calling it, which is taking this idea of ownership of stuff within metalcore. Eventually, if we wanted to grow it into a turn-based tactical game, you could take the same NFTs over to that one. If we want to turn it into some kind of role-playing game, we can have aspects of that. So I think there's a lot of space to grow the metaverses, into different directions, as well as continuing on expanding, the core metalcore experience into more maps, more vehicles, more infantry, and allowing players to grow their collections and have new experiences to play with their vehicles and infantry.
And part of the reason didn't really play a lot of Warhammer is because there was never really anybody around who would be willing to subject themselves to that with me, understandably. So that's sort of related to my follow-up question, which is open for everyone. But the idea of player liquidity, right? Like you log into a game, if it's a multiplayer game, you certainly need either human players or AI players to keep it entertaining. So I'm curious, when you're in the early stages of releasing a game, or if you're a platform that supports games, how are you all thinking about making sure that that sort of first impression when somebody logs in for the first time is not just this game looks fun, characters are cool, but also that people are there to play against you, and it feels fair.
Yeah, part of our thought process, why we sort of went with the free to play model, is that that does at least get a lot of people at least initially in the door, and there's no cost entry. We're pushing wallet integration onto the player choice whenever they want to engage with that side of things, they can engage with that side of things. So there's no friction, or there's very little friction of player entry into metalcore, which is hopefully will increase the amount of players that are there. But we're also we want to provide interactions with AI and missions that don't necessarily always require people online. So the game is playable both as a PvP open world fighting combat game, but also if there's lulls in population, or you just don't want to engage that side of things, you can always engage with the missions and the more single player PvE side of the experience to progress and grow and earn rewards.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Shardbound's designed around a lot of the same principles, right? Defer the moment of friction around wallet integration or anything. Delay that until players are ready for it, until they're already hooked into your game. Make the game free to play, easy to download, available as many places as you can make it available. So I think that's all super important. And finding different different ways to kind of keep players engaged, right? Like, and to take the more complex, difficult pieces of the experience or novel things, and to really create kind of the right incentives for players to want to go ahead and convert. So, you can do quite a lot with live operations and weekly events to kind of create the incentives for players. But a lot of it really just comes down to kind of free to play game design, 101, which is, maximize your day one funnel, maximize your week one funnel, maximize your, 3 and 9 month or 3 and 6 and 12-month funnels to bring players in and just really get them interested in the experience. And obviously liquidity, like for a match made PvP game, it's always a bit of a struggle, right? And so there are definitely things that you could do in terms of again, live events and geographic kind of focus in terms of your rollout. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, these games do kind of succeed or fail based on how many players you can get to bring in. So, making sure that you are efficient in how you bring players in and how you do matchmaking is also really important to just provide a good experience. I think AI is super helpful, right? Being able to play against bots, having some single player modes in. But there's really nothing quite like a human opponent, and so anything that you could do to bring more players in the door for competition is super helpful.
I had a question off of this. Is we think a lot about this with the Runeverse game. Is how how do you? I guess it's a marketing thing, but how do you guys think about? And this applies to you too, Jennifer, from the IMAX side. Is how do you think about the phases of onboarding, and are there really phases? Are you guys really focused on the Web3 audience at first, and having them create that initial spark, and then sort of pivot to messaging to everybody else? Are you doing it all in sort of one fell swoop? I'd love to sort of get your opinion, because I know that there's a lot of people in the audience that are working on games, developing games, and all of us on stage are making games. And would love to know how you parse that out, if you in fact do parse it out.
For what it's worth, I mean, I think you have to go the other way. I think if you think that your North Star market is massive mainstream audiences, you have to start there, and then, I think communicate with the Web3 crowd why that's good and why that's exciting. And I think that's a pretty clear picture to paint, right? Like, and people that are interested in ownership and are interested in trading are just going to be excited to have 100 million more people to trade with, right? So that I think is the direction. If you can start to covet that North Star, for us, it's core strategy gaming players, right? Like, if you can bring those players in, they serve as great proof points to continue to kind of keep your Web3 audience excited and engaged. I think going the other direction is that it's actually a little bit fraught, right? Like, in some ways, I think the picture that we would paint is probably, the small number of esports players and influencers, right? Because that is an aspirational North Star goal for that, a lot of players can kind of aim for. So if you're kind of showing off that kind of competitive play, then you're going to get the sort of more mainstream players that are the weekend warrior, competitive players. Whereas if you kind of, aim, aim more sort of mass market, you're gonna get kind of more collectors. If you aim at collectors, it maybe is harder to get it's harder to sort of like paint the picture, I suppose, of like, where this is going to be 10 years down the road, because it, maybe feels like it becomes a sort of niche, sort of collectible opportunity, as opposed to kind of a big mainstream kind of gaming market.
Yeah, I mean, Board, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love that answer so much. It's like aim for the target you're actually trying to hit, instead of, sort of do a skip jump to the next thing. Um, yeah, I think if you have the expertise to market to mass, to mass gamers, I think that's absolutely the move. Chainsaw, do you all feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, I think both audiences are important to hit. One thing that we found, or at least I found or noticed while marketing was doing its things, is that the Web3 audience tends to be much more engaged, in especially on Discord and stuff like that. There's a lot more community that will engage early on. I think compared to mass market, just traditional gamers. I think so. I think there's a little bit of both sides. It's the Web3 audience tends to be good for early marketing and getting them into playtests and seeing the game and building up hype from that side. And I think and then traditional marketing, I think will engage with the mass market players, the non Web3 players. So I think, yeah, for sure. And you always want to shoot for where you want to end up. Otherwise, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. So, yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, doing it in parallel is great. If you look at free to play games, the vast majority of players of any free to play game are literally playing it for free. They're probably watching ads, and then there's a small percentage that are spending a considerable amount of money, and that is secretly the real customer of those free to play games. But the reason the whales, the people who spend the money, do so is because they are surrounded by the eyeballs of all the free players, right? Like they feel accomplished and big and important amongst all those other people, and everybody else who doesn't necessarily want to put a financial stake or spend money in a game still gets to enjoy it in their own way. And I think that's a win for everybody. So, do you see most games that are on chain trying to kind of navigate those two worlds in parallel, where you have a game, it is playable without really sort of any on-chain elements, and then slowly what happens is you transition players from a lack of ownership to being able to own stuff, because after they've invested enough into a game, owning a skin is very important to them, or owning some kind of cosmetic or land or whatever it might be. What I'm hearing from you guys is there's a little bit of like, let's try to win over the people who want to own stuff first and then go to the mass market. I do wonder if doing it in parallel and going after both groups is potentially another route to consider.
Yeah, I think the early adopters are always, or will most likely be, people who are already interested in Web3 games. I think that, they have their finger on the pulse of Web3 gaming. It is a little bit harder to break into the mass market as Web3 games because stigma and whatever else. But yeah, I agree. I think having both is vital. Having that population of players that are either free to play or are transitioning into paid players. Like you said, it's exactly right. They are the community to which the people who want to peacock to can peacock to. They're the community to which, if they feel that they're willing to spend the time and effort in that game space to earn the stuff in the game and then compete against paid players, that gives them a sense of accomplishment. And the people who either lack of time or just are flush with enough resources to do this can just go and say, I want to purchase this mech, and I want to go out and I want to stomp some people out. I want to feel good about that. I want to have that power. And, that's there too. I think without that large player base, or at least a player base to fill all those roles, yeah, you're going to have some detriment on one side or another.
All right. I want to just do a quick reset of the room. We have to keep the show at 60 minutes, so we have about 15 minutes left. Everybody who's listening, who's new in the space, this is Game Changers. Myself and Board Elon and Forgotten Runes host it every single Tuesday, and we really try to facilitate conversations between multiple projects, and really talk to people who are actually doing the building, not just commenting. And this week we have Jennifer from the IMAX team and Shardbound, as well as Metalcore. So it's almost like an IMAX ecosystem space. Make sure to give everybody a follow and check out what they're doing. We got to support what we got to support the builders. And I think, Board, I'm not sure if you have any more questions, but I do know if you're listening and you have any questions from the audience, we always like to give an opportunity towards the end of the show to have people come up. So feel free to request. We'll get you up here to ask some questions. I think something that I'm interested in sort of wrapping up on is I always think it's important for builders to be sort of, yes, heads down building, but also keeping one eye up and seeing who else is out there and who's doing something that is interesting to you, that inspires you. And so, I mean, and Jennifer, you're welcome to answer this question as well, but Chainsaw or Shardbound, are there other games out there that are inspiring you? And it doesn't have to be Web3 necessarily, but like, who is there someone out there, multiple people out there that you just feel like they're doing the right kind of work and approaching the space correctly? I just love hearing what's inspiring, people that are building, or you just heads down and you don't want to pay attention to anyone, which is fair too.
uh, yeah. I mean, certainly a lot of heads down time, but no, I mean, I like, obviously, we think, companies like Illuvium that are really taking on metaverse interoperability is super interesting to watch, because in a lot of ways, one of the promises of Web3 is portability, and so we're always pretty inspired to see companies that are able to sort of like take on these projects and build in parallel and build scale, and to really try to bring in lots of different types of gamers. So that's super interesting. And then obviously, like, on the kind of non Web2 side, like seeing how Riot has kind of gone from a very long time of being a game company to being properly being Riot Games, and now having a portfolio set in an IP universe, and bringing in lots of different types of players. Like, I think that's a great model and a great way to build a company and a brand over a very long time, right? I mean, the road is strewn with the corpses of companies that could only make one game and couldn't figure out how to sort of leverage that into a long-term endeavor. And we certainly want to be building for decades and decades and decades. And so looking to models like that, and frankly, World of Warcraft, right? The proto universe, proto metaverse, right? How do you start to build these generational network effects that keep players around and engaged? Those are the companies that we sort of look to as inspiration.
Yeah, I think same. As far as for growing the original metaverse, that's perfect for Warcraft. Yeah. I mean, I mostly heads down here. Obviously, we took inspiration from games like World of Tanks and PlanetSide for metalcore, games we love to play, and games that incorporated the same mechanics or similar mechanics that we want to get it across. Some new things pop up every now and again. Like, I just started looking into Space Nation Online. I think that's a pretty interesting Web3 MMO, Space MMO. But yeah, just looking to see what's successful, what's fun, and then seeing if that applies to what we want to do.
So definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh no, just for me, I guess, like, yeah, lots of interesting projects definitely coming up, but I guess, like, in a more macro sense, I'm really interested in how, I don't know, like, some genres are shifting. Like, that's kind of my main thing I'm interested in right now, where there seem to be more and more games that are blending genres. Like, I think that people, of course, like, seem to have less and less time to be able to dedicate to long game experiences, or just like focus on one thing. And so I feel like there are more games coming up that are like blending genres that weren't together before, which is an interesting trend. I don't have an immediate example top of mind, but something that I've been noticing that I think is very, like, interesting in the game building space.
Yeah, so the long-term vision definitely very clear from everyone. Before we jump to questions from listeners and the audience, does everybody want to go around and just talk about the remainder of 2020 the next 3 to 6 months, anything people should watch out for, or ways people can participate in your respective ecosystems?
Yeah, sure. Shardbound's got a very exciting year coming up. We're starting to do some early alpha play testing, and with a goal of being in open beta, really in just a couple of months. So, please go over to shardbound.com, pre-register, pop into the Discord, say hi. We're always looking for people to give us feedback on the product we want to build with the community, and so definitely some opportunities to get in and play pre-release, but we're expecting to be fully live, by the end of the year and open to all comers. So, keep an eye on the project. Follow us on Twitter and join the Discord.
We do play tests occasionally. I'm not sure the schedule right now, but pop over to metalcore.gg or our Discord. Join up. We'll let you know when playtests are going on. We're moving towards early access end of the year, so that's something to look forward to. Hop on Discord and we'll point you to whenever we have playtests, and feedback and more bodies are always welcome.
Yeah, and then I know earlier you were joking about, if E3 wasn't canceled, but right now for San Diego Comic-Con, which starts tomorrow, both Shardbound and Metalcore have gameplay demo stations available. There's a game demo experience that's right across the street from the convention center at the Marriott Marquis, and both Shardbound and Metalcore are fully playable there. So if you're going to San Diego, please check that out. They will be there all weekend.
I love that you guys are hitting Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We passed this year on San Diego, but we're going to be hitting New York. So hopefully, we'll see you in New York. Let's do, before we wrap up. Let's ask some. Let's get some audience questions. Blue Bottle, what's going on?
Hey everybody,
Welcome.
glad to be here. Just a quick question. I know time's not our best friend at the moment. So to the builders, when your own thoughts imagine the actual blend of these two webs actually come together, literally they sit together as one and it blends, like Jennifer said earlier. That's a beautiful word blend. I'll leave that with you. Just your own thoughts.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chainsaw.
I think the way we approached things was, what benefits does Web3 offer us, and what was a successful architecture within Web2, and where do those two things blend or overlap? Where does that that graph meet? And I think what Web2 can do a lot of the same things Web3 does within the game itself. Web3 allows things to exist beyond the game, and I think that's where we blended things. Was like, all right, well, if we can provide the best sense of ownership and collection, and that stuff with Web2 idea, Web2 gameplay, Web2 design, and then Web3 builds upon that to say, all right, well, now in addition to that, you can also do things outside of the game, like trade and sell, and have a sense of ownership of the things you have unlocked or crafted. I think that's where we were looking at things with that.
So time scale, a year? Would you say 2 years to a casual gamer just to click on a store and choose a game just because of a game, not a particular web? Well, sorry, that's the kind of context I was looking for.
Oh, as far as
that's going to take
the whole industry, or
yeah. I know it's a tough question, but everybody's got opinion on it.
Yeah, well, let's see whether or not Steam or Xbox or Sony, how they, their web stores integrate Web3 stuff. I know EGS is probably a little more friendly right now, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Hopefully within a year. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's really on us, right? Like us as builders now to show the platforms that this technology can be used for good, and can deliver over the top great player experiences in a way that they still get their they still get their 30% or whatever, right? So designing in the right way, it's going to take a generation of games to really help bring those platforms around. And I think it'll come as they start seeing early builds of what folks like Metalcore and us and some other folks are doing. And then I think as that liberalizes, then then you're going to see just a lot more integration. It's kind of blended games that really blend, right, the best experiences of Web 2 and Web 3.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Blue Balls, thanks for the question. I am getting dirty eyeballs from my family, so I think we're gonna have to wrap up the space today. But really, really, really appreciate everyone coming on today. Both Games and Jennifer, you guys are helping push this space forward. And Board, as always, I actually didn't give you a chance to shill. Board, what's going on? Tell me. I see you're handling 2 accounts right now. Board Box is in the audience. What's going on?
Just covering the internet with just a hideous neon green is my daily mission. Board Box is a gaming membership. We like to highlight the best games, period. Blockchain games, any kind of games. So welcome everyone to join our club. We've got a great Discord where you come hang out. And we're frequently talking about the latest games. So please do check out boardbox.io and create a free account. And we will, as the young people say, vibe together. Thanks for that, Board. Thanks for that, Bear.
I didn't know you were a viber.
Yeah. Try to vibe. This is like corporate people trying to sound cool. This is how they do it. Let us vibe together, fellow kids.
I think I'm too old to vibe. I'd fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, you're off on a farm, basically living out your retirement, being chased by goats. It's a different stage.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, thank you again to all the guests today. Really appreciate it. And then also, I'll do my last shill. You can see that cute little old purple wizard talking about old people. Which being hosted by Forgotten Runes. I'm on the team, one of the co-founders. I see one of my other co-founders, Elf, with the bright pink. He's the bright pink evil goat in the audience. Please give us a follow. We also have the Forgotten Runeverse, who's also in the audience. A big MMORPG coming out later this month, and we're very excited about it. Free to play, browser based. You can go check out their site. You can go check out the Twitter account. It has all the information. And of course, the Genesis collection of the Wizards and the Souls and the Warriors. You can come check that out through our Twitter account or ForgottenRunes.com. We love gaming. We love digital collectibles. We love you, Board. I love you too. Let's have a great week and let's keep going. We'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.